Honorable members.
Opposition Member of Parliament stormed out of Parliament this morning, boycotting the plenary sitting convened to debate and pass the contentious Uganda People's Defence Force Amendment Bill 2025 and the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025.
When you bring a bill here, you should give it time for people to have their input. But you are saying, we don't want your input, we are going to pass the bill as is. That's why, Honorable Speaker, you did not rein in on the committee to give adequate time to the stakeholders. That means this is pretentious, this is a sham for these two bills, the UPDF Amendment Bill. Honorable Speaker, I will take my leave because I don't want to participate in this sham process. Thank you.
Initially, these MPs filled their seats in the chambers, giving the impression that they would participate in the debate. However, the leader of opposition, Ssenyonyi, abruptly announced that they would walk out, citing the futility of debating bills whose outcome had already been predetermined. He said, "We can't be part of this. There is no room for debate."
Ne committee report. Majority committee report naye teyayise mitendera gy'erina okuyitamu kubanga bannaffe babadde ku hoteri nga bawayamu ku nsonga ez'enjawulo, clauses ez'enjawulo naki aba NRM ne babayita okugenda Entebbe State House era n'ababadde nga bali mu meeting nga bagamba nedda etteeka lino likyamu bagenze eri bagenze okuvaayo nga byakyuse naye ate bannaffe bano olwavudde Entebbe State House tebazzeeyo gye babadde bateeseza ripooti yaabwe.
Ssenyonyi's comment came in reaction of yesterday's National Resistance Movement caucus meeting at State House in Entebbe, where ruling party MPs reportedly agreed to pass the UPDF bill as it is. The opposition urges that such pre-arranged position renders parliamentary debate meaningless and reduce the legislative process to rubber stamp. The two bills sparked concerns within the opposition ranks and civil society. Critics say the UPDF Amendment Bill would entrench military influence in civilian affairs, while the Political Parties Bill is seen as an attempt to curtail independent political organization and dissent.
The minority observe that the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 contravenes the provisions of Article 93 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda and Rule 130, Sub-Rule 1, Sub-Rule B and C of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament of Uganda. Extracts from the Statement of Justification of the clauses of the bill signed and presented to the committee by the Honorable Yusuf Mutembuli, MP Bunyole East, in paragraph 2, page 6, is reproduced as follows. The bill, in clause 2, proposes to institutionalize IPOD as an organ of the Consultative Forum. The Consultative Forum is currently created under Section 20 of the Principal Act. The National Consultative Forum shall have two organs. A, the organ, and I underline the word organ for emphasis, the organ for political parties and political organizations with representation in Parliament, which shall be known as the Inter-Party Organizations for Dialogue. And B, the organ, I highlight again, the organ for political parties and political organizations without representation in Parliament, which shall be known as the Forum for Represented Political Parties, Non-Represented Political Parties, and Political Organizations. This will ensure that political parties represented in Parliament have their own organ within the National Consultative Forum, where they will discuss their unique issues pertaining to them. Likewise, there will also be a forum for non-represented political parties and political organizations in which the non-represented parties also have their own organ to discuss issues pertaining to them. The current council of the National Consultative Forum will remain for the purpose of enforcing the code and dealing with matters arising from the two organs. End of quote. The Honorable Yusuf Mutembuli was accompanied to the committee by Mr. Serwambala Kabagabe Lawrence, who signed his written submission as the Executive Director, Interparty Organization for Dialogue, IPOD. Please, Right Honorable Speaker and members, pay attention to the following extracts from the written submission of Mr. Serwambala. Today, open quotation, today, I respectfully submit that it is time to give IPOD the dignity, durability, and legitimacy it deserves by making it a legal entity. I have underlined that word. By making it a legal entity under the laws of Uganda. That is found in paragraph 5 on page 1. He continues, I ask you on behalf of IPOD and on behalf of all political parties represented in Parliament to champion the legal institutionalizing, I underline that point, of IPOD. That is found in paragraph 4, page 2. I also wish to add that institutionalizing IPOD is even more justified by paragraph 5, page 2, as a statutory body, and I underline the word statutory body. IPOD would be empowered to, 1, enforce rules of engagement and ethical codes of conduct among political parties. 2, institutionalize youth and women participation in political dialogue. 3, mandate the regular review of reforms, including those on electoral laws, political finance, and civic education. He continues, such a statutory recognition would also offer structured pathway of emerging political actors to engage with mainstream governance mechanisms, thereby expanding Uganda's democratic base. That is in paragraph 2 on page 4 of Mr. Serwambala's presentation. As a statutory IPOD would be better positioned to, 1, monitor, and members, please pay attention, monitor, evaluate, and report on implementation of agreed up reforms. Interface formally with the Electoral Commission, Parliament, and the Executive to track progress. Mobilize technical and financial resources with greater autonomy and transparency. Currently, IPOD's operations are donor-funded and dependent on the voluntary participation of political parties. He continues, institutionalizing IPOD will provide it with the legal identity, define government structure, and budgetary allocations from the National Treasury. I will repeat. Provide it with the legal identity, define governance structure, and budgetary allocation from the National Treasury. 2, provide continuity in leadership, programming, and stakeholder engagement. They continue. A statutory foundation would help IPOD transition from a project-based entity to nationally owned and constitutionally anchored institution. That is found in paragraph 2 on page 5. Let IPOD not just be an initiative, but an institution. This is in the concluding paragraph on page 6. End of quotation. It is clear from the written submissions of the movers of the bill and their one-man ally, Mr. Serwambala, that the bill imposes a charge on the consolidated fund. Parliament is stopped from proceeding on any bill or a motion for that bill that imposes a statutory charge on the consolidated fund. This is in Article 93 of the Constitution and Rule 130, Sub-Rule 1 and 2 of the Rules of Procedure. This is the finding of the minority. The minority finds that the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025, privately moved by the Honorable Nakut Faith Loru, Honorable Mutembuli Yusuf, and Honorable Afidra Ronald Olema, violates Article 93 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, and therefore it is unconstitutional. The other dissent is overthrow of the legal mandates of the other institutions. The minority observed that the private members' bill, the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025, intends to overthrow the legal mandates of various institutions conferred by the Constitution and Acts of Parliament. A patient analysis of by the minority observed that Parliament, this institution, Electoral Commission, National Youth Council, National Women's Council, amongst others, will be relegated to be subordinate to IPOD. The mandate to carry out legal reforms is an exclusive preserve of Parliament provided under Article 79. Nobody can make a law to reform issues of elections except this Parliament. 2, the mandate to enforce rules of engagement and conduct amongst political parties is the preserve of the Electoral Commission by law. The mandate to institutionalize women and youth in political spaces is a preserve of the Women and National Youth Councils. The recent policy of the NRM government, as told to us here in this Parliament by the Ministry of Public Service, is that MDAs are being rationalized for efficiency and effectiveness by eliminating duplication and wastefulness. This is my finding. The minority finds that the bill interferes with both the constitutional and statutory mandates of Parliament, Cabinet, Electoral Commission, National Youth Council, National Women's Council, and potentially amends by infection several acts of Parliament which will likely plunge government into conflicts and confusion. It is further found that provisions of the bill appear to contradict the government policy of rationalization, specifically on halting the creations of new bodies, organs, councils, secretariats, etc. The third dissent is on lack of public participation and consultation with political parties. The minority observed that the movers of the political parties and organizations Amendment Bill 2025 did not consult the political parties represented in Parliament and those outside. In fact, the motion seeking leave of Parliament to move a private member's bill was sought and granted to the movers of the bill on the 13th May 2025 around 5 p.m. The order paper listing the bill for the first reading, which was the next day, 14th May 2025, was released on the 14th, just as we are here, on the 13th May 2025, before the bill was even published and gazetted. The bill was published then on the 14th May 2025 and introduced to the House on the same day. The Honorable Chairperson of the Committee of Legal and Parliamentary Affairs scheduled, and indeed the committee held the meetings with the movers on the 15th day of 2025, and today we are here to present the report with only the movers of the bill submitting. It is therefore suspicious that the regulator of the political parties, which is the Electoral Commission, the supervising ministry, Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the political parties represented in Parliament were never consulted by the movers nor the committee. No other stakeholder, including members of Parliament, who had sought, albeit in futility, to move private members' bills on reforms touching political parties and elections, were accorded an opportunity to submit before the committee. The House may recall the vehement submission by the esteemed founding former first son of Uganda, the Honorable Jimmy James Michael Akena Obote, MP Lira City East and party president of the two-time party in government, for those who don't remember, 1962 to 1971 and 1981 to 1985, who is also a member and a former chair of the IPOD. In his submission on record of this House, the Honorable Jimmy James Michael Akena labeled the bill diabolical. The minority found it necessary to recast the dictionary meaning of the word diabolical as below. It means characteristics of a devil, or so evil as to be suggestive of a devil. The second dictionary definition is disgracefully bad and unpleasant. The minority invites the House to pay kind attention and consider the concerns of the party president of UPC, and also recall the concerns of the Honorable Asuman Basalirwa, the party president of JEMA, in as far as implementation of Sections 14 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act is concerned. There is no doubt in my mind that the leaders of the political parties in IPOD, who are not members of this House, I have listed them: the Honorable Chagulanyi Robert Sentamo of the official opposition party, NUP, the Honorable Amuriat Patrick Oboy of FDC, One Uganda, One People, the Honorable Norbert Mao of DP, Truth and Justice, and Mr. Magara George William of the PPP, if given the opportunity, would equally have opposed this bill which has been moved without their views. The minority also observes that the regulator of the political parties, which is the Electoral Commission, with powers to sanction political parties and organizations, has powers to sanction political parties and organizations. The sanctions available to the Electoral Commission include deregistration, which is an equivalent to a death sentence to a political party and organization. The minority is of the considered view that the Electoral Commission has all the tools, should it be necessary, to deal with any political party which is found culpable. The minority did not receive any single evidence of complaint filed by the movers to the Electoral Commission, and further that the Electoral Commission failed to act on such imaginary violations. This is the finding of the minority. The minority finds that the bill is diabolical. You can recall those definitions, and miserably falls short of meeting the provisions of Article 8A of the Constitution in as far as public participation in enactment of legislation is concerned. It is further found that the speed at which the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 is being rushed is greatly disconnected with the urgency required and expected of Parliament to solve the contemporary challenges facing Ugandans in the areas of decent jobs, improvement in the healthcare services, provision of quality education, delivery of fair and speedy justice, amongst others. I think I missed. Let me rephrase that. It is further found that the speed at which the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 is being rushed is greatly disconnected with the urgency required and expected of Parliament to solve the contemporary challenges facing Ugandans in the areas of creations of decent jobs, improvement of healthcare services, provision of quality education, delivery of fair and speedy justice, amongst others. The other dissenting point is the unreasonableness and the irrationality of the bill. The main justification of the bill is stated by the movers to be to condition and obtain commitment of political parties and organizations to principles of tolerance, dialogue, and peaceful coexistence. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The main justification of the bill is stated by the movers to be to condition or obtain commitment of political parties and organizations to principles of tolerance, dialogue, and peaceful coexistence. The justification is shallow, unreasonable, irrational. At registration, all political parties carefully choose their own principles embedded in their constitutions which guide them, and these are registered with the Electoral Commission. In the absence of the express provisions in the constitution of political parties, the recourse is to the national objectives and direct principles of state policies and Articles 29 and 69 to 76 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. Finding, the minority finds that the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 is frivolous, vexatious, unjustified, unreasonable, irrational, and irrationally falls shortly acute of the constitutional parameters set out in the national objectives and direct principles of the state policy. Conclusion, the minority having found the following: 1, that the provisions of the bill have the effect of imposing a charge on the consolidated fund contrary to Article 93 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. 2, that the bill interferes with both constitutional and statutory mandates of Parliament, Cabinet, Electoral Commission, National Youth Council, National Women Council, and potential amendments by infection, several acts of Parliament. 3, that the bill contradicts the government policy of rationalization on creation of new expenditure centers, such as the 2 organs proposed in this bill. 4, that the bill is diabolical and miserably falls short of meeting the provisions of Article 8A of the Constitution as far as participation in enactment of legislation. 5, the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill is frivolous, vexatious, unjustified, unreasonable, and irrational. Now, therefore, it is recommended to Parliament as follows: that no question be proposed upon the political parties and organizations bill. 2. Motions seeking leave to introduce private members' bills should be subjected to rigorous scrutiny by way of extensive debates on the justification for the peculiar circumstances to warrant the grant of leave. If I may add, government must first fail reasonably to provide a bill to have a justification for private membership. B. The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development be cautioned. The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development be cautioned to execute the mandate of the ministry diligently and avoid late-night escapades of issuance of defective certificates of financial implication. Parliament avoids entangling and entertaining motions and bills arising out of petty quarrels and disagreements between individuals and institutions. Lastly, that the Business Committee of Parliament should convene on more regular basis to conduct business as provided in the rules of procedure. Madam Speaker, before I conclude, when a point of law or a point of procedure is raised in this House, it is my humble prayer that you make a ruling substantially. It cannot, a point of law or a preliminary objection cannot be put to vote. That preserve is entirely for the presiding officer. The ruling must be on the record. You cannot say because the points of law are raised. This is provided in our rules. And I request that where I have raised a point of law touching the Constitution, touching our rules, before you give a formal ruling. It is now hereby reported by this person who signed the minority report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable.
As a member of the IPOD summit, I am finding it extremely strange that I cannot even put input on the goings on of IPOD on record. You see, Madam Speaker, every parliament we have debated a memorandum, and there's a current memorandum which is standing for IPOD. And the chair of IPOD for the last 4 years has been NRM. And if there's any breach, it is NRM who have failed to call a summit or even a council meeting. So it is important that we deal with this actual issue, because what are we correcting? What is the sickness? What is the disease we're correcting? At the moment, the summit has not sat since NRM has been in the chair for 4 years. Yet it's supposed to be 6 months. The provisions which are being brought now are being brought in bad faith, because in the last parliament, under the chairmanship of Honorable Boss of Both, IPOD brought it, and I personally presented them to the same committee. Because the increased funding which came in a supplementary of 2020 had IPOD in it. And how was that money to be shared? At that time, political parties were sharing 10 billion per annum. Under the IPOD arrangement, it was increased to 35, with 5 billion going as the 15%, another 5 billion for covering the other 15%, and then 70%, the 25 billion, was on numerical strength. At that time, the president acknowledged that NRM acted in bad faith by not allowing that amendment to pass. They acted in bad faith. The words of the president, unchristian. And now we are going through a process to undermine everything. There's no dialogue here. If we talk about dialogue, as a political party, as a leader of a political party, as the political party which first held the first summit, from 2009, the first summit was held in December 2018, under my chairmanship. And the principles which we're debating is what we agreed in that. It's under the Democratic Party that they put flesh on those principles. And Madam Speaker, are we proceeding well when we cannot discuss this issue? I have not been consulted as a leader of the summit. As a political party, we have not been consulted. How is it that we're debating this issue? And that is why I say it is diabolical. It is not done in the interest of the political party. I speak for UPC. My brother is not part of this. And I'm thankful that Mao is not here to embarrass himself. This is wrong. And we shall all be judged.
Thank you.
Let us be honest